Well, and what I think is happening with a lot of these is people are borrowing the aesthetics. So,
Mhm.
like, let's take one, really frank example here. So, Frankenstein and like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I think that those two things combined are what the Hulk is, right? It's two very classic horror tropes. And the Hulk used to be played as kind of this horrifying creature that was uncontrollable. And then, kind of as the stories go on, he just kind of becomes a mildly grumpy dude. There's a lot of
Yeah,
interpretations of him that it's just
creature from the Black Lagoon.
right. Well, yeah, like where he doesn't have the horror elements. And I think that the deal with the Hulk that in some ways he steals the aesthetics. Like obviously he's green, obviously, he's extremely strong and large and brutish looking. I think the problem is that one of the problems with Frankenstein is that he is a zombie. He's an aberration created in a culture that is terrified of him, right? Because he is somewhere between life and death and like a
He's
sin against
unnatural.
God. Yeah. Whereas the Hulk, when he came about, represented nuclear radiation, the fear of nuclear war. He was, made in the 60s and into the 80s, was extremely popular, kind of in the same way that Godzilla is. He's like a hyper radiated, powerful creature that destroys things. And what's
Yeah.
fascinating is, I think in some ways, the Hulk has lost the initial horror element that made him relevant in the first place, right?
Oh,
We aren't
100%.
yeah, we don't fear nuclear annihilation in the same way. And so if you
We
saw
should, but we don't.
right, like the fact that it's never brought up that he's radiated, it's like kind of
Yeah, like
weird.
they just kind of use gamma radiation as is what it is.
It's a magic power source,
It's a magic
even
power
though
source. It's the
if
same energy.
if you told me that somebody was radiated enough that their body would transform, I would not be within 10 miles of that dude.
Yeah, it's like putting it this way: the original Hulk was gray, one,
Right.
uh, very similar to the color of a rotting corpse.
Or the
But
black and white films, that type of thing.
yeah, he's not a good looking dude, and now I have not read the original comics. I don't know what's contained in them, but I would imagine he's not heroic most of the time.
Well, or
Not
he's
that he's
the
villainous, but he's more of a fact of nature. He's not. The Hulk
yeah,
is represented the same way that Hyde is. He's just impetus. He's just, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, whether or not my it's the id, the ego, that sort of thing. It's
yeah,
well,
yeah,
part
yeah,
of me
yeah.
doesn't want to do it. Part of me wants to stick within the realms of society,
Because
and the other part of me doesn't care.
in some of the original comics, he transformed during the full moon. Like it was
Yes,
literally like just that classic.
yes, he takes a lot from werewolves as well.
Right. And so I think Hulk has a very positive he's very positively received. I don't think a lot of people hate
Yeah.
the character, but it's interesting how people are like, "Oh, well, Frankenstein's this old creature," and it's like, no, he's the Hulk. Like this is just the modern interpretation of him. And I think in some ways too, you had kind of the Judeo-Christian values that were kind of saying, well, the dead should be buried and they shouldn't be brought back, and so, you know, and I think that that's kind of faded with society, right? It used to be like experiment bad, which is kind of fascinating when you look at how Stan Lee, like, gamma radiation accident gives this guy superpowers and curses him, or Morbius is cursed by science, or all the Spider-Man's villains are falling into some random science
Yeah.
container and just being horribly maimed. And it's
Or they were
fascinating.
scientists themselves playing with things they shouldn't, which again plays into the humans shouldn't play God, which is present in Frankenstein.
What's interesting though is I actually think a closer character to Frankenstein is Ultron. I think Ultron is a
Mm.
much better modern depiction of him. And I
And you
think
mean the
that
monster, not yeah.
Ultron, the bad
No,
guy.
I'm saying Frankenstein, the
Yeah,
monster, not
Frankenstein the monster, right? Because
Frankenstein's.
because
Yeah,
we're not afraid of zombies, we're afraid of AI. We made this unnatural thing. It assimilates humanity. and it's terrifying. And but because it's funny because we think about Frankenstein as being gone or being like a meme or a joke or like something from Hotel Transylvania, but Marvel's adapted this character twice. Like this is
Yeah.
just straight up an adaptation of Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
he's got the same kind of origin. Really intelligent person plays with something they shouldn't. Something arrives that they don't want because they played around with something they shouldn't. That's how it goes. There's a
well,
million and one characters that are based around the same trope. And
the
all of
other
it,
go ahead,
a
go ahead.
lot of it, it's funny. I'm sure that Mary Shelley was not the very first person to come up with this trope either.
No.
But
It
she
like
is
the Golem
very
was
well
like
known.
one of the older
Oh,
tropes.
yeah.
Yeah. This idea.
I've created something because I was playing around with forces that I shouldn't. The moral of the story is don't play God.
Well, and what's interesting too is that like the Golem is adapted as like a defender, right? And in Frankenstein, it's not Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein's monster. Everybody's going to be like
Yeah.
that in the comments. It's the Frankenstein's the doctor. I know it, but it's shorthand.
He's
But
Frank
anyway,
Jr., basically.
right. So what's interesting about his story is that society can never accept him and he's a loner and it has like a really sad ending. Whereas like whenever you look at the way that Marvel adapts these things, Ultron shows up and he's kind of in the movies, right? And I've seen depictions of Ultron that are really good where he's just deadpanned, horrifying, calculated logic. He he shows up in the movie and almost instantly they build Vision. And they're like, "Don't worry, AI can be good." And I'm like, "Maybe you should have saved Vision for another film." Because
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't be playing around with the thing that you just played around with and
right, because you
created a
kind of
monster from.
undercut your own story by saying like
No, they
when
100% did that.
right,
The issue I have with that film specifically is that they played the trailer like a horror trailer.
right, right, with
The
the
whole
strings
no
on
strings
me and
on
yeah,
me with the dead
yeah.
puppet thing. It's like, that's cool. Doesn't play around with that very much.
No.
It's like it's a cool intro, and that's just about it.